Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
And welcome to the Life and Happiness Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. Happy Friday, and I hope all of you have had a good week so far. What's the most interesting thing that's happened this week? I think for me, it was the announcement for the new Spider-Man movie coming out in December. For the MCU, it was either the Spider-Man movies or the Iron Man ones, which I enjoyed the most. And I'm looking forward to this one in December, because I hear all these different rumors that the old Spider-Man are coming back. You know, Tobey Maguire from Sam Raimi movies back when, at least my generation, the barely 90s kids were little. And also the Amazing Spider-Man movie series, which came out, I think, in the early 2010s, or like 2012 type era. That those Spider-Man are all rumored to be in the same movie. Because if you guys have been seeing WandaVision at all, there are rumors of, multiverse type shenanigans. So basically, characters from other movies from completely different companies would be showing up just to make things a little bit more interesting, like in the comics. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with that. But, who knows? We'll see what happens. So let's see. The question of the day today is, are you where you want to be? Yeah, simple like that. Like, do you see yourself now, and are you perfectly happy with what you have, or are there things on your mind which you know you could be better? And that goes into our theme for today. We're going to be talking about the power of the individual and the things which hold that power back. Because I believe, every single one of us has so much more to us than meets the eye. There's a lot of potential there, which can be brought forth into reality. I think excellence, not necessarily excellence in the same areas, but excellence nonetheless, is something we all can achieve in something that is truly ourselves. I think there's something real about every individual, which is different from everyone else, basically. My real nature is different from someone else's real nature, and if I work towards it, I could bring the path of me bringing that part out of me. What it does is not only bring out the good in my own life and bring blessings towards me, but it also has the power of being an example for friends and family members and maybe fixing the issues there. So I want to ask you all, what does that look like? What does the best you could be look like? If I were to go for myself, I think of all the flaws that I have that I would want to rectify. Because I know from my own nature, I am I procrastinate a lot. That is one thing. That's one issue I do have. A constant thought with me is, if I could pull it off just a little bit longer, or maybe I'm gonna rest up this moment just to enjoy myself a little bit more. When in reality, what I should be doing is getting on that workhorse and getting back on it, which I struggle with. But I keep fighting to improve, because I know that's one thing which holding me back from that person, that best person or it could be. And other things would be like that, is constant reminders to myself to be grateful, to keep in mind the things which I have and how others have played roles in me having these things. So just essentially to humble myself. I can never be grateful enough for all the great things that I've been able to experience. And those are just some of the things. But if I were to describe more succinctly, I guess it would be someone who's responsible. Now, maybe even having my own family. I not so it's not just that I do my job well at work. I want to be excelling. I want to be growing up in the ranks. I want my writing to improve. Like, there's all these other things which I want to do, and I think it would be meaningful to go down that path. And also, I'm willing to do those things. Because sometimes people have different scenarios, and they look at that kind of dream, and they think, that's too hard. I can't get there. It's not something I can do. And, sometimes that might be true. For example, and I can only think of extreme cases like this, is like, hey, I have no arms, like, at all, but I want to be an amazing basketball player. And, well, unless technology improves to correct that kind of thing, that's one of the extreme issues where I don't believe it works out. Basically, I think so long as you're not twisting reality, if you're literally not fighting what's real, like if you're trying to run into a wall because you keep thinking that wall's not there, you're going to keep running into that wall. That's the only time where I don't think we have the power to change it. But other than that, I think when we're dealing with the potential reality, that's something we really can work with and bring into the real world. So let's say you don't feel right now that you could do, let's say you wanted to be a great artist and you have no artistic skill, at least for now, because it's not something you've attempted before. So it's not like you can jump right now into that realm and be where you want to be. No, it's going to take work and sacrifice. But if it's something that you feel is worth doing, you start small. You start with what you can do, and you see that progress start to improve. There's plenty of resources online you can take advantage of. Heck, think about it. If let's say you're going through the education system, be it anything from elementary to high school and including college. If you wanted to learn something better, the internet's your extreme resource for so much that classes don't tend to offer, or different points of view on the same topic, or more detailed explanations of the same topic. All it takes is the effort to go and do something about it. All it takes that steps from you trying to look for what is in my power right now to do something to take me towards that goal. And I think that progress forward is the most important part. What is the type of way I have to live to be constantly moving forward towards that aim? And sometimes that aim will change, because you'll move forward in one direction and you'll be looking at it at your aim from a different angle, and like, maybe that's not the right aim. Let me go aim this way. Let me recorrect myself. But you're constantly moving forward, and all what that path is doing is bringing more out of you that you never saw before. And the reason why I put so much emphasis on this is because, in my experience going through the public education system, as I mentioned, is that many people don't see that kind of power within themselves. They were kind of got guardrailed along what are the things which must be valued. And I'll use my own high school as an example. They were pushing 100% college acceptance rate and like attendance rate kind of thing for the school. But there's a good swath of the school that isn't good for those kinds of things. Not to say necessarily anything wrong with college, but more to say that there are some people who college isn't the path they want to take, or even that college is the right path to take. And academics isn't their forte. That's the best way to put that. But what those messages are telling those same students is that whatever their forte is, if it's not those academics, then they're kind of worthless. Not kind of worthless. They are worthless. That those jobs which you can get outside of the college degree are things which aren't worth anything to society. You're basically meaningless, a waste on society. That's how many students felt. And when I would speak to some of these students, because you would get two reactions. Either they would overreact in a way, well, like, they do not, like, against the school system, or they're just not gonna agree to what's going on. They're gonna go do their own thing, and who cares if they don't do well? They're doing themselves, and to them, that's what matters. But then there's also the other side, which I saw was, like, essentially succumbing to that kind of pressure, where you kind of agree to what they're saying, that, yeah, maybe I am worthless. So the opposite, it's a two opposite directions. It's definitive, yes, I am worth something no matter what you say, and then you know what, you're right, I'm not good at this, so I'm not worth anything. And there are issues with both sides. But for example, like the people who didn't see themselves as worth anything because they weren't good in that one specific area which was claimed, we know when I would get to know these people, I would see so much more to them than they saw in themselves. And just me pointing that out, noting what really, the things which make them tick, the things which made them them, you would see a light in their eyes kind of spark. Because someone touched the little parts of them which are real, and they didn't even remember that those parts were there. And having felt those things again, it brings this amazing smile to their face. It's a fire like you've never seen before. And those people, they start to improve. They start to do better because, you know, they know this is not my realm. This is not where I'm good at. But here's something which I really can do. And it's not only that I can do it, it's other people like that I can do it. It's something valuable to others. And then with the other extreme, let's see. It's so, if I describe that extreme in more detail, what those people do when they're like, well, screw off to the school system, is that they abdicate responsibility. They're like, well, if I have to do these responsibilities, those are the only things which make me valuable, but I'm not good at that, well, I'm just going to not listen to any of that, not do any responsibility. I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to enjoy myself, party, whatever, fun, because that's the only thing which matters, is it makes me feel good. But they're also selling themselves short. Because the thing is, you can't bring in everything inside of you unless you're disciplined. You can't, without those rules in place, you won't be able to strive for the heights. Because part of your nature doesn't want you to do it. Because you know what? Accepting responsibility is hard. No one likes accepting responsibility. Like, if we all could just abdicate it and there would be no issues, then I think everyone would. But your skills won't be honed. Your character won't be honed. And ultimately, I think I've mentioned this before, things just kind of feel good, but eventually their luster starts to run out. And you'll start to feel empty because you know you're not where you could be. The point is, both of those extremes, though in different directions, one is out of confidence, one is out of anxiety, they both suffer from the same issue where deep in your mind, you know you're not where you could be. And I think the worst part is, you know you're moving away from it. That's where the issues are. It's not just, hey, I suck. I'm not who I'm meant to be, but I'm striving for that every day, and I can see my improvement. No, it's I'm not where I'm meant to be, and I'm also getting worse. I'm also pulling further away. It's getting harder and harder to strive there. So people give up on that kind of goal because it's also a painful goal. Wanting to it starts with admitting that you're not that person who you want to be. That you have flaws and you have issues. And people don't like to admit their own flaws. I I know I definitely don't like to admit them. And everyone I've met doesn't like being pointed out when they're wrong. And I think that's essentially the same kind of thing. We don't like to think that there's an issue with what we're doing. Because that means we get to fix it all again. And it takes effort to fix it all again. So, as we're going to get into the next segment soon, I want you guys to have these thoughts in mind. What would you have to change about your life the way it is now to get to that next step, to get to that next stage where you know you could be and it would be worth it to be there? It's not just that's something out of you that you could bring out. It's you bringing that out would make all this kind of things around you, all the pain that we deal with on a daily basis, it would make it worth it. So think about that. And how about this? What's in your way? All right. We'll be back in the next segment. See you soon.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello and welcome back to the Life and Happiness podcast by the GSMC Podcast Network. This is the second segment of the day. First segment, we spoke about what the best that you could possibly be looks like, and what does that kind of come from. And now we're going to be exploring what are the reasons that are holding you back from becoming that kind of person, you know? So, it's easy to split it into these two categories. I think the best way to start is by splitting two. It's either something you aren't doing, or it's something else outside of you which is holding you back. Those are the only two possible options, because they include all types of categories. It's either from an individual level, or it's something else impacting you. And I'm going to start off by talking about something else impacting you and see really how much of an effect do those things really have? So now, if we're going to go talk about that part of the spectrum, we got to see, well, there are only two things which can really, there's two categories within that category which really matter. It's either you're imagining that something else is impacting you, it's not really there, or it is a real form of oppression there, which is affecting you. And well, what can you do about it? Is there something you can do about it? How should you feel about those kinds of things in your own life? So let's start with the imagined type of things. So let's say, for example, here would be one. It would be you selling yourself short. You're saying there's nothing I can do. The rest of the world wouldn't be looking at me, or people won't give me a fair shake. You're giving yourself reasons to not go step into that kind of direction, you know? So it's something you wouldn't be able to know if it were true, because you don't know what people think. It's something you telling yourself something, like you're telling yourself that no, it's just not possible because society says it's not possible, or I think society says that it's not possible, and all you're really doing in that scenario is preventing yourself from bringing out all of the ability you could bring out if you just believed in yourself just that little bit more. And let's see, for example, here's the best way to illustrate this. This is so for guys who want to get a girlfriend. Basically, they see that pretty face all across the way. And they don't go up and say hi because they just say to themselves, you know what? I'm not going to get the girl. I'm not cute. I'm not funny. Whatever it is. And, she'll just say no. I know she's going to say no. But, you're not her. You don't know what her tastes are. And by just not giving yourself the chance to shoot for it, you're just eliminating that possibility from ever happening. Like, just right then and there. When, in reality, just a confident smile going up and just asking her out, who knows, you might actually get that yes. And a lot of times, just having the confidence to do something like that will get you to yes. But because many guys just sell themselves short that way, they remove all that possibility from happening. In the real world, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what would happen unless you would try. And I try, I don't mean, you just barely attempt. You put your foot in the water. No, I mean, you sit back, get ready, and give it an honest shot. Give it everything you have to offer. I think when you aim at those kinds of things with that kind of attitude, you would be surprised by the type of things which actually do come true. How much people would be willing to give you if you're willing to give all of yourself to them. I don't think we really realize how much an effect that has on our own lives. Anyways, so that's that kind of example. If you're imagining something holding your back, or if you don't have proof that it's real, you're just selling yourself short. You're limiting your potential futures, potential outcomes by telling yourself you can't do it. So now let's say, what if there actually is someone who's out to get you? What if there is that kind of force there which is preventing you from doing something? Like, okay, let's use an example. Oh, this teacher's just mean. He doesn't like me specifically. There's no way I can do well in this class because he just doesn't like me. And you know what? You can't change someone's heart. If someone really does want to treat you that way, there's nothing you pretty much can do about that, about changing them. But what you can do is maximize all the effort necessary to get the best grade you can in spite of how they're acting. Because think about it. If someone's going out of the way to oppress you, going out of the way to put you down, think about it like a bully. Why would you let them win? Do you backing down and giving in to that feeling, that I can't do anything, that there's something stopping me, is letting them get away with it, letting them be victorious. They're deciding for you what your potential is, and they're winning because you didn't fight them back. So, and there are other things you can do about it. You can go with the TA, see, because if the professor has an issue, maybe the TAs are willing to help you out. Or if you really can't prove that he has an issue with you, go up to his higher-ups. Be like, this professor is not treating me fairly, and here's my evidence for it. Like, if you're willing to put the effort in, there are ways to solve those kinds of scenarios and make it so that you can have that better grade. Or think about it. Here's another example, because people also have stuff like this. That's like random person you don't know. They're trying to put their way over you. Now the other one would see, let's say someone's close to you, like let's say your partner in a relationship, or it's a parent or another family member, like a brother or sister, that they're going out of their way to undermine you and prevent you from doing what you want to do, from being on that path where you think you can grow. And you know what? Sometimes those situations are really hard. Sometimes when those people who you care about are selling you short and treating you in a way that's unfair, it's hard to get past that. Oh, these people think of me in this way, so it must be true, because they're saying it to me all the time. I'll bring up my example. I mentioned it last time. My dad, his whole view as being a dad he's be my biggest bully, point out all my flaws, belittle me, and hurt me many times when I was growing up. And what it taught me, what all those things taught me, when other people are trying to put their will, their opinion, their understanding of you over you, it only has power if you give them power. Those words only have as much power as you bestow upon them. If you engage in a truth about yourself and understand who you are and what you're honestly trying to do, those insults, those forces of oppression become lighter. You can withstand them, and maybe you can smile in the face of them. And it would make you better for it, because you'd be able to persevere in those harder situations. Because you know what? There are always going to be those types of people that are trying to get in your way, that are trying to hurt you. And if you understand who you are as a person, what you can and can't do, and single-mindedly aim at bringing the best of you forth, you can withstand those assaults which aren't true. Those people won't have that kind of effect on you. And you know what? Then the next step is, what if there actually is some type of physical force they're trying to use? There's threats that are beyond the verbal and emotional. Because those are entirely different, and not everyone can protect themselves in those types of situations. And you know what? I would say those are the hardest things to do. What comes to mind in the most extreme examples would be the examples of slavery. And Nazi Germany comes to mind with the concentration camp, Soviet Russia with the gulags. It's, you listen to me, you obey my will, or you'll endure serious pain, your family will endure serious pain, or we'll kill you. Like, that's would be the extreme of what those physical scenarios are. And I would suggest you all read the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl for an idea of what those kind of scenarios are like. And for further understanding what I'm going to assert here, even though I think it's one of the hardest decisions to make, at those points, even at the point of force, even when literally all of society wants to have you done in, your ability to succeed, to grow beyond it, is a choice that you have to make. Yes, it's a choice that risks life and limb, but it's a choice. You can choose to disobey, choose to believe in yourself and what you can do no matter what. And I think if you really do walk that path, you can have the strength to withstand those kinds of forces, even when the real oppression is. And I'm going to go back to that theme that I mentioned before. They want to break you. All these people, when it's a real force, is holding you back from becoming who you want to be, who you could be. It's because in those scenarios where it's real, it's someone out to put their will on top of you. They want you to break. They want you to succumb. They want you to become a slave. So why would you listen to them? Why would you give them that satisfaction? And I know the reason why people do is because it's easier. It really comes down to the kind of idea. The one that I agree with, or I would rather live poor and free than rich as a slave and have everything provided for me. But not everyone shares that. I think it's so much easier to want everything to be provided for you, want to be taken care of, even if it costs you your own free will, essentially. Like, think about it as the bystander type effect. It's so much easier just to stand there and watch than it is to step up for the person who's being hurt. It's much easier to go along with the crowd than to be the one that breaks away. But the crowd doesn't always have your best intentions. Ultimately, it comes to you. And so the interesting thing that I'm going to come to as a conclusion of that whole spiel is everything ultimately comes back to you. Because we are talking all about there if there were forces outside of you trying to keep you down. And whether they're real or fake, they only have the power, as much power to control you as you give them. And ultimately, you must be the one to choose to rise up. And it's not saying that's easy, because you know what? It's one of the hardest things anyone can do. And what I found is hardly anyone can withstand standing alone while everyone they know, while the world at large, is against them. And it takes incredible courage, one of the rarest traits, to do such a thing. But I think everyone has that power within them if they gave it a chance to listen. And also, that path that they can take where they believe in themselves and work towards that goal single-mindedly of bringing the best of themselves forward. The meaning which comes from that, the happiness from being on that path, deciding to fix the little things, like do what you can right now just to make the circumstances around you better. Be it cleaning up your room, be it just dressing up slightly nicer. Just those little tiny things have so much of an impact. And just that little bit of progress of starting to grow will reveal to you that there's so much more to you than what meets the eye, so much more to you than you thought there was. And the only one stopping you is you. So I'm going to get into that. What makes us in the next segment. Don't remember, we got the 7 thoughts keeping you down for the last segment. Stay tuned for that. And we'll be back right after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Life and Happiness podcast run by the GSMC Podcast Network with your host, Steven Solorzano. We're on to segment 3 right now. The first 2 segments, we went first over what would you look like if you were at the best you possibly could be, and how would you get there? And second segment, we went over what are the things that are holding you back. Specifically, is something else holding you back? And in both cases, whether there's actually something holding you back, and when there's not something holding you back, but you think there is, you're doing yourself more harm than good by believing such a thing. Well, more like by allowing those things to actually keep your potential locked in. Because also, well, whether or not it's real or fake, that force which you think or is oppressing you wants you to act that way, wants you to stay down. So why would you give that force the opportunity to win? Why would you let them believe to have actually crushed you and sunk your spirits low. In reality, no. You have to be the one that acknowledges, yes, there are things out there which, you know what, will make things more difficult. There are things out there which, sometimes they want to hurt me. But in spite of all those forces, I'm going to put my best foot forward every single time. And I think it's on that journey where you're bringing that part of you forward, when the best of you draws forth what is meaningful. And happiness comes from being on that path. Because you know what? People have led very happy lives in the harshest conditions. Again, I recommend 1,000 times Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Because what that book talks about is finding meaning from the depths of Auschwitz. That meaning was the way that meaning is what separated those who lived and those who died. And for Frankl himself, it was the thoughts of his wife, of going back to her. Her smile is what kept him through all those horrible months in the concentration camps. I suggest you read that book to learn more of his story. It's such a great read. And it goes back to the things that not only that I'm talking to today, but the things from the last 2 episodes, where what is meaningful can help you survive no matter how bad the forces around you become. And also how, specifically for men, and I think for women as well, but I think it's stronger for them towards children, that our wives are some of our greatest sources of life, the things that we care about most in many respects. And it's making them smile, being the best we can be for them, which gives us the strength we need to every single day, in and out. And I guess it's not really, I guess we don't talk about it that much nowadays, but I do think it's true. And I think that book illustrates how that can be true for a person. Anyways, so we came to dealing with yourself. That's the most important battle there is. And what does that mean? So I've alluded before to human nature, that I think it's something real that connects all of us together, and I think that there's male and female natures. And even further that, I think there's your individual nature. So these ideas that we've been talking about, these more so guiding principles, you can't just apply them willy-nilly. They'll work for you differently than the way they'll work for someone else. For example, my nature, so far as I understand it, is a lazy nature. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. And I also know that, well, my body really does like its rest. If I can't push itself beyond, if I try to, I can sleep more than 8 hours, but the more I try to push myself into not sleeping as much, that just means I'm going to end up waking up later, be less responsible, that kind of thing. And, well, here's another thing with my nature. I specifically don't crave power. I don't want control over other people. So that's something I understand. Some people have that in their natures, but mine isn't that way. And I have to understand my nature, how I can orient it towards the best direction that I can. So, along those lines, hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. Along those lines, everyone has gifts. Everyone has talents. Even those of you that don't think you do, you really do have those talents there. And it may be hard to see, but it just takes discovering what they are. For example, let's see. Here's what can I say about this specific person? So, I have a friend who's they're not the best at being disciplined. That's not what they do. They're not good. They're incredibly brilliant, but they're not good at academics because they don't have the patience to kind of sit down, grind, and do it the way other people might. And his mind wanders all over the place. But because his mind wanders, what he does, what he's good at, his gift is that he tells stories. That's his kind of thing. And they're creative, they're wonderfully imaginative. I don't know anyone else who makes stories the way this guy does. But that's his kind of talent. I have another friend who he may not be the best at seeing people, but what he can do is his thing is he can look at problems and notice the intricate details which other people may have missed. Like he sees, his mind goes into all the complicated and finds the little nuances which dramatically affects how something may work. Another person, her gift is what does she do? This is an interesting kind of thing because hers has to do with people. What she does is that she can bring out of someone what they really want to do. Like, she is such a nice person that it kind of brings forth that kind of more open side of someone and allows them both to understand more deeply about themselves. It's actually really wonderful whenever I've seen it. It's amazing to have her around. Another girl I know, what her gift is, she's wonderful at making people feel calmer. She can ease your needs and your worries, and in just very womanly way, very motherly way, and it's very endearing. But that's part of her nature. That's one of the blessings that she has. And people don't just have one. I just listening to ones which came to mind, but people have many gifts. And on the flip side, people have flaws. Everyone has flaws. And so part of that is accepting that we're not perfect. Another one of my flaws is, so I tend to try to simplify things to make it easy to, not just for myself to understand, but for others to understand. But I do run into the habit of sometimes simplifying things too much and missing something important, and that is what gets me in the butt. And sometimes, and I do have to work on that. And another one of my flaws is, well, my nature isn't naturally extroverted. My nature is more, well, I don't want to talk to people if I don't have to. That would be what that part of it is. But in becoming the person who I want to be, I know I've had to fight that, and especially in leadership type roles where I have to be the first one to go and speak to these other people. I have to bring out more out of them by being active with them. And, well, I think it's worked for me rather well. And I've grown a lot because of it, but I had to constantly be on that battle. Because if I'm not on that battle, then I become worse at it, and then I stop reaching out to others as much as I want to. And I stop being that person. I stray from that path that I know I should be on. And that's a constant back and forth. That's another one. Let's see. Another one of my flaws would be something like, well, I already mentioned that I don't ask for help, but and that one actually is pretty bad, but I've gotten better at that one too. And that one is more as like my nature wants to be independent. My instincts would rather I fail and do something alone than accept someone's help and maybe make it succeed. And I know that's the wrong way to go about it, so I had to constantly fight that, especially in group kind of efforts, and remind myself to ask questions and reach out to people. And also, if whatever team kind of thing you do or thing you work with other people, it does best for everyone when you incorporate them all towards the same goal. And that just means I need to know when I should let those other people in, and I have to work on that. But those are kind of my own flaws, and that I'm in that constant battle with them, so I can keep going the direction that I want to go. Many of you, I'm sure you've noticed your own flaws, and part of the right path, I think, comes from accepting that they're there, and accepting that you have to orient them towards the right direction. For example, human aggression. How can you get, or more specifically, male aggression? Because if you look at many studies, it's overwhelmingly young men, ages like 16 to 30, which commit almost all the crimes. And because if comparing male and female natures, and you can look at studies supporting this kind of thing, I think some of the biggest differences is on the extreme ends. The most aggressive people are men, and the most what's the word? What's the right word? Understanding is not the right word. It was in that direction. Agreeable. The most agreeable people are women. It doesn't say that there aren't aggressive women and there aren't agreeable men. It's more like if you put like the two normal distributions, two like hills on top of each other, like where they flare out on one side, just that slight difference makes it so if like you take the top 1% of like agreeable people or top 1% of like aggressive people, they happen to all be in that one category. And it's also like that for stuff like I think the other biggest difference was women are more interested in people and men are more interested in things. Those are the two most notable differences between men and women. And also, if you compare it between nations which are most egalitarian, and what that means is, so they've removed the most most signals from society which push you towards a certain direction. Those are the ones which exaggerate the differences more than any other place in the world. Anyway, on that point, so part of male nature is that aggression, that tendency towards those kinds of competitive things. So it going wrong is orienting towards crime, theft, murder, all that kind of stuff. But in the right direction, if you hone it towards essentially where you could become the best you could be, that would be towards responsibility. That would be the men which are competing in their industries to bring home the most for their families, their friends, their wives and children, all that. Like putting that nature towards things which not only benefit themselves, but benefit the people around them, and curb the causing harm to other people. And we have to do that to our own flaws that we understand as individuals. Way out with that, let's say, for my own laziness, is I don't like making things more high stress than they need to be. So when I've been in competitions for like Science Olympiad, one of the things I've done, I always try to usher that sense of calm, like bring down that sense of urgency which everyone has, so that they can focus the best. And there is a point where it gets too calm, and I understand that, and I have to fight against that urge. But using the skill to benefit others is how really I can maximize the use of that part of me. I have to incorporate my flaws into who I am, on top of honing my talents, my gifts. And everyone has these things too. You just need to try to do your best to observe yourself, so then you can notice when you see those things. That's the best way, really, I can think to put it. So, now that we understand what you could be, what might be holding you back, and how we really work as individuals, I hope this given some thought to what's the right way to aim, how really we can start to pick ourselves up towards that path which we can see is so much better. Now, I really want to hear what you guys think about that. Put your thoughts in the comments below so we can have this back and forth and figure out, hey, maybe these things are kind of true, or maybe I got something wrong. I'd love to hear what you think. And all right, we got to go back, take our last break, and then go into the fourth segment. I'll see you guys soon.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
podcast powered by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, thank you to the GSMC Podcast Network for providing this opportunity that I can interact with all of you. Now let's get back to the subject matter at hand. Everything today has been about the power of the individual, what really makes us who we are, and what stops us from becoming who we could be. And let's start again with what we first talked about was, what is that best you could be? And then we went to what's holding you back. And really, even if things are holding you back, telling yourself that they're holding you back, that they're stopping your growth, is doing more harm than good. And believing that you need to do as much as you can, despite the circumstances, are the best way to move forward. And that comes with understanding our own natures, which we talked about in segment 3, when I use myself and other friends as examples, when in reality it's everyone has blessings, everyone has talents. They may not be in the same field, but we all have them. And on the flip side, we also have our flaws, the things which are really issues that we need to work on. And we need to apply these kind of principles specifically to our, like, these grand ideas. Now we need to cover the details. How exactly you're going to make this work. And basically, we'd be battling ourselves. And this fight is the biggest fight in our own lives. It's a bigger fight than society. It's a bigger fight than your family. Your biggest fight is with you. And who knows? I've seen amazing things happen to people when they start to fight and win. So who knows what could happen? So I have my 7 thoughts keeping you down today. Thoughts which recur in your head, but in reality you should toss these aside for something better. Number 1, it's not my responsibility, so I shouldn't do anything about it. Think about that, right? You see an issue, you see a problem, but the responsibility doesn't fall on you. Or, it's someone else's job to handle it, but they're not handling it. In reality, when you're looking at that, that's an opportunity for you. Actually, Jordan Peterson wrote about this in his latest book, Beyond Order. Responsibility abdicated is an opportunity for growth. If you start doing those, if you choose to take those opportunities on, you make yourself necessary to your boss, to your friends, to your loved ones. It just makes you all around more desirable. And it could give you what you need as that path to grow. You should never overlook that chance to show to others what you really can do. Now, next one. And this one I really struggle with. Number 2. Just a few more minutes. You know that feeling when you don't want to do what you need to do. And you're like, okay, I'm going to rest up a little bit longer. And that little bit longer turns into several hours. Yeah, you all know that kind of feeling. And I especially know that kind of feeling. And it's something I work with every single day. And sometimes I fail, sometimes I succeed. But I'm doing little bits better with it each time. And you know what? I actually really like this from the Tao. The Tao is Chinese proverbs, old Chinese wisdom. And this one I actually really did appreciate, where you shouldn't aim to be the one that handles the big problems. You should aim to be one that handles the problems before they become big problems at all, when they're tiny and insignificant. And, even though people don't notice that, that's the person that has the smoothest kind of path in life, because they handle all those issues, and people like having those kinds of people around. You're the one that solves those problems. Everything runs smoothly, and it'll help you grow. You'll be wasting less time. So here's the next one, number 3. No one's going to notice. So think about it this way. No one's going to notice if I, slip my phone in class and look at the answers while I'm on the test. No one's going to notice if I pull the candy bar from the store. Or, think about it this way. Actually, this is the most realistic one. Because the others, I think, do apply, but we don't like to think that we think that way sometimes. It's, no one's going to notice if I don't put full effort. And I don't think that's true, first off. Because you notice when you don't put full effort. And usually the work shows that you didn't put the full effort. And I think that's just a bad way to look at it. I think a good idea, which comes from religions, is the idea that you are constantly being observed, you're constantly being judged, and because of that, you have to bring out your best all the time. You're held accountable to something higher than you, but irrespective of that, you're also accountable to yourself. You're the one who's going to know when I think you are your own harshest judge, and no matter what others say, that pain inside of you, which comes from not being that person who you could be, is a much stronger force than what anyone else could ever say. So when you keep telling yourself no one's going to notice if I slack off, or whatever it is that they're not going to notice, it's ultimately sending you in that wrong direction. Because you know what? Kindness goes unnoticed most of the time. The good goes unnoticed. That doesn't mean it's not good. That doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. And just because people don't notice it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So number 4, it's only their fault, not mine. And sometimes that might be true. I think that might be true sometimes, but I do think that what we should be thinking in those scenarios is there something more I could have done to improve the situation? Because we can always egg on and make things worse. Or by doing nothing, also make things worse. And I think it's honest to question. It's much better to deal with others in a way that we can admit that we're wrong. That we're willing to give something a little bit, be it fault or something, to resolve the situation in a way where things improve for the most amount of people. And also, it comes to this kind of arrogance. Like, think about the kids where they do whatever they want, and whatever malice or bad happens out because of that, they take no blame for it, and everyone else is all the worse for it. Like, that attitude, like that line, it's only other people's fault, it's not mine. It's going to that we talked about before. I'm not succeeding because the world is against me. I'm not succeeding because this teacher's against me. You know what? They could be against you. There could be truth that it's others' fault in others. But there's also how much I need to put into it. So number 5, nothing I can do will help. So here's kind of along similar lines in the last one, but I would more so put this to kind of like the problem is so big that there is no way an individual could make an impact. I think about this more so not mob mentality. I mentioned it before, where it's like the bystander effect, when it's like something big is happening and the vast majority of people are doing nothing about it. And in reality, I think individuals do have a lot more power to change things than we think. And honestly, you being that first person to step up and do something to help another person might be what invites everyone else to go along, stand aside you, to have courage to be that first person to go on and make that impact. For example, think about it. Okay, here's another one. And I guess in the culture, there's a lot of issues regarding forms of hatred, right? And I think the best way to handle that would be if people acted in a manner which minimized hatred, that over time, that would help minimize the hatred as a whole. And you know what? It's a slow effect, but it is an effect. And I think it's the only way really to do it. Because if people are abdicating the responsibility to solve the issue, well then, no one's going to do it. Because think about it. What is society? Society is just people. Lots of people interacting. And the whole of society is just the whole of those people interacting. So if you don't fix the little parts which make it up, how the hell are you going to fix the big thing? There's no separation there because it's just made up out of people. People like you and me. People that have their issues. People that, you know what, sometimes are wrong. Sometimes they're right. But people nonetheless. So I think there's always something we can do. We may not be able to stop the threats, we may be able to stop the suffering, or we may be able to eliminate an issue entirely. But there's always a better that we can strive for. And I've mentioned little bits of this. No one else, so this number 6 is, no one else is doing it. So why should I? Think about that. Because imagine this. No one, I'll go with the neighborhood type example for a lot of city people, including myself that we see. No one talks to one another. No one smiles, no one says hi, especially now that we're all wearing masks. Why should I be the one to go do it? It makes me nervous, makes me embarrassed. And I don't want to feel that kind of embarrassment. Well, I think that even though other people aren't extending that kindness to me, I think the best way is extending that kindness. Because not only might it make someone's day that much better, but also it might bring that part of them out forward too. So they start doing it too. I think the only way you can influence people to do something is by example. So in this scenario, it's just like the last one. But don't be afraid to be the first one to start something, to start those conversations. Of course, it depends. Again, like we've mentioned, the details matter, and you have to know how to do it in your specific scenario. But I think you should still try to figure out how to do it. I think it might be a good thing for everyone. And ultimately, I do think it will help out by you starting that kind of movement. You know what, be the first. And I'm sure you will not be the last. So number 7. And I think this one's a lot more common than it should be. Thinking that I'm not important. As an individual, I'm not important. I don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And it goes back to what I talked in the first segment with people who sell themselves short. Or not even that. People just want to do their own thing and ignore the problems at hand. Like all the other things we were going to before, what difference can I make? I'm just one kind of thing. One piece of a whole of a pie that has millions of pieces. Billions of pieces actually. But I think that's the wrong way to go about it. And, well, ultimately, because I think that devalues you. And I think there's a big danger in devaluing humanity. It's always been devaluing human beings, which lead to the greatest evils of human history. Most famously, probably the Holocaust dehumanizing the Jewish people, which led to all those horrors. But also dehumanizing yourself, belittling yourself, is the same thing as those same topics we were talking about before, where you're just holding yourself back. If you tell yourself something's not possible, if your efforts won't make an impact, then you make that true. It's only true if you let it be true. And in reality, when I do think that so long as it's not trying to bend reality, twist it into something that reality isn't, humans and individuals have so much more power to change things than we realize. Just imagine, it's rare nowadays, so I don't know if you guys have seen it, but what I've seen in my own life is an individual who, through their actions, was such a good person that it brought forth the best in other people. That, through their smile, the way they would talk, all those kinds of things, it's almost like an aura that they had, which made everything much better around them as a much more fun thing to do, much happier thing to do. And it inspired others to kind of bring that kind of thing forth in them. And it's something which comes out of love, too. And I think I've seen glimmers of that in other people, and I think they could bring it out if they work towards it. And only you as an angel can do it. No one else can do it for you. And it's something I strive for every day. And I know I fail. I make mistakes, and I have to rectify them and keep going, keep aiming towards my ideal. But I do think it's something worth doing. Alright, so that was the topic today, the power of the individual. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. If you have any rebuttals or anything, any back and forth, you can figure out what might be true about all of this. Give us a like on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are, on the YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe for more. And I will see you all next week. This is Steven Solorzano, signing off.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitchers, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast.